Hello, and welcome to the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create an empowering resource for those who wish to discover more about these topics. I pray that this podcast will not only bless you, but that it will bring growth and healing to our communities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. Today, I am joined by a very special guest. Her name is Suse Silva. Suse Silva offers mental health support with a somatic approach that focuses on healing at the soul level. She uses the healing arts of somatic movement, trauma-informed yoga, Qigong, meditation, breathwork, art making, forest bathing, sound therapy, energy healing, and more to support her clients in clearing trauma from the body, regulating the nervous system, and developing a new narrative with holistic perspectives and habits to support their dreams, ambitions, and soul's calling. She has dedicated over a decade to this work, and she continues to educate, support, and hold nurturing spaces that inspire people to be themselves, heal, explore, grow, and have fun. Welcome, Susie.
Yay, thank you for having me, Sarah.
Yes, I am so excited for our conversation for today. Before we dive into our topic, I want to know, what are 3 things that you can't live without and why?
Ooh, good question. I guess number one, what I'm holding here is tea. I drink a lot of tea, herbal teas. Yeah, I definitely love it. I could probably live without it, but it's definitely up there with things that I do regularly. What a good question. What else did I not live without? I don't know. It's an interesting one because I feel like I'm like right now too. I'm been reading a lot of kind of Eastern philosophy and kind of like Buddhist perspective. And the book that I'm reading right now is called When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron. And anyways, she's been talking a lot about impermanence and, the need of we have this sense of control or that things are always going to be here. But the truth is that everything's always kind of in flux and always changing, and how to really kind of embrace that. So okay, tea I can't live without. What else? I love my partner, so I feel like him as well. I know we're all gonna die eventually, but I hope that doesn't happen for a really long time, and I really love him.
Right.
And we support each other a lot. So yeah, he's definitely a rock and anchor in my life. And I don't know, I would say Mother Earth as well. I really love nature and being out in nature, the ocean. There's so much to choose. It's such a hard answer. Such a hard question to answer.
Well, you did well. So,
Can I know what yours are? Do you have a
yeah.
top 3 that you go to, or does it change?
Yeah, that is a very, very good observation. It does change. But the first thing for me is my faith in God. That's one thing I definitely can't live without.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Another other thing is music. I really love
Mm.
listening to music, and I don't think I could live without it at all. It grounds me, you know? That last one, my family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't live without them either.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, all of those too. Add those to my list.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for asking me. I've never got it flipped on me before. So thank you for that. But Susie, I am so honored to have you on the podcast today, especially to talk about your experience with just the somatic approach to healing and how you take a trauma-informed lens and you apply it to regulating trauma within the body. So can you share a little bit about your mental health journey and why you decided to get into somatic healing?
Yeah, so in 2010, well, I guess previous to that, would have been 2009. I started to have very strange experiences that almost felt as if I was on what people would describe as like having a psychedelic experience, but I was not on any psychedelic drugs at all. And I started to see things that other people around me didn't see, hear things that other people around me didn't hear, feel things that other people weren't sensing. And it was very bizarre. And then eventually I had these kind of like episodic happenings. And eventually one of them got me hospitalized and then diagnosed with type 1 bipolar disorder. And after a week stay in hospital, I was just given medication and told, here, take these and you'll be fine, but you're going to have to take this medication for the rest of your life. And that was pretty much it. And then had some follow up appointments with a psychiatrist. And I took the medical route right away because what I experienced was confusing. What I experienced in the hospital was traumatizing.
Mm,
And I didn't want to go back there. So I was like, okay, this is what the doctors are saying. They're the professionals. I'm going to listen and follow suit. And so I did that almost like right after, well, shortly after, about 6 months after coming out of hospital and kind of just like gaining my footing back and being in the world and trying to understand what happened. I decided to dive into a yoga teacher training. So that really helped me reconnect with the soul aspect of the mind, body, soul piece. I had lost that previous to those experiences I was having. Grew up in a Catholic household and it didn't resonate with me what was taught in the church, and a lot of the stuff I just didn't it didn't really land fully. And then through my teens, I was just like, God doesn't exist. I like felt very atheist, nihilistic, just like didn't see the purpose to anything. So in hindsight, what I experienced was like a spiritual emergency. And I kind of learned that as I started to dive into studying yoga and more Eastern philosophies and ways of kind of understanding spirit or God or universe. And then that started to really build. And that soul piece of the mind, body, soul component of being a human really started to grow. And I started to feel that interconnectedness to everything. And started to develop my own relationship to God outside of any religion, but kind of piecing all of them together in a way. Because I did become more curious about different religions throughout the world and read some spiritual texts and things like that to kind of take what or took what worked for me and then kind of left the rest that didn't resonate. Yeah. So then how did that kind of get into the somatic? So yoga really teaches about coming into the body and having and gaining introspection or being able to be with the sensations in your body and how to also like move and work with the energies that are arising. So even if it's like an emotion, how to work with that through movement. So it really started, yoga is the kind of foundation. That's really where like somatic stems from anyways.
mhm,
And yeah, and other like shamanic practices as well, where the body is used, and the body is an incredible, intelligent thing, and like we're part of nature as well. We're like birthed into this earth, just like a tree, and we have this natural ability to come back into homeostasis or equilibrium where we can find that balance. So it was a great thing to have come into. And I had been practicing yoga through high school as well. Like I just liked the movement. I just didn't dive deep into the philosophy, the history, and the whole holistic approach, which is really rooted in yoga.
wow,
Mhm.
that sounds so interesting, and I also love, like, especially, like, in your bio, you have so many different, like, practices and different avenues, like, can you talk a little bit about Qigong and forest bathing? Like, I'm so
Yeah.
curious about those.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So Qigong are you familiar with traditional Chinese medicine or
No, not really.
acupuncture or
Oh,
cupping?
yes, I've heard yeah.
Okay, so acupuncture and cupping come from traditional Chinese medicine. And
Mm,
it's similar to yoga or yoga's sister science called Ayurveda, where it's about looking at the whole aspect of being. So Qigong is an element of traditional Chinese medicine. And it's kind of similar to like yoga asana or the yoga poses. So there are different movements that you do to move chi or energy within the body. And they're really like slow, gentle movements, similar to Tai Chi, if you've seen that before, with like
Mm-hmm.
kind of moving of energy. It works by nourishing different organ systems within the body. And
Okay.
yeah, the organs help process different emotions too. So it's like you're kind of working on multiple levels with these types of movements. Forest bathing is, or Shinrin Yuku, which is a Japanese term or practice that was developed in Japan to get people to get out into nature. And it really is just about being mindful in nature. So instead of like going on a hike, having your headphones in and just like jamming out to music, which is great and wonderful to do every now and then, but taking
Mm-hmm.
time to be in nature, but being silent in nature and really observing everything that's around you. So taking in the sense of like the trees and the plants and maybe animals or water that's nearby, taking in like you can like touch bark and stuff, like touch the tree, kind of feel the energy of the trees. You can, just allow your senses to be wide open. So taking in all that you can see, all of the different colors and textures, feeling the air on your skin, the temperature. And it really is about being as mindful and as present as possible while walking through the forest. And it's
Mm-hmm.
super, super healing
Wow. Yeah,
for our
it
nervous system.
sounds super healing. Like I
Mhm.
being from New York, I don't get to do forest bathing that often, but I should definitely try that out. I was very curious about it. So thank you.
You can even go like, even if it's not like a forest per se, but having that connection to nature. So even if you go to a park, and one thing that
Mhm.
I tell like and teach with my clients is to walk barefoot, like on the grass or even at like the beach or anything like that, or putting your feet in the water, like things like that are really, really grounding. Or even just like touching a tree, holding a tree and just like thanking the tree, having a little chat with the tree. I'm that lady in the park for sure.
Hey, it's good to be one with nature, to be
It
honest, you
is.
know?
It really is. And it makes a cute, like for me, it's so grounding. And like I said at the beginning, like being connected with Mother Earth, like I don't think I could live without Mother Earth. And it really helps me to ground and recenter and just give me that perspective that like, I'm like things are so much bigger and I'm a lot smaller than I think I am. Or like, if I'm struggling with something, it's not as big of a deal when I'm like out in nature and I'm just like, oh yeah, like I can just breathe. I can just take in the sights and sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hinted at it a little bit earlier, but we are like mind, body, and soul. And sometimes we forget to like look at all of them holistically. To that point, I would ask, like, why is holistic healing so important? And how can you begin to actually find a balance between taking care of your mind, soul, and body?
hmm Yeah. So in Eastern perspective, they see the body like a garden. So a garden requires multiple things. It needs soil, like nutrient dense soil for plants to grow well. It needs sunlight and it needs to be watered. So there's multiple things that and multiple approaches that you need to do when maintaining a garden. And it is said that like in the Western world or like Western medicine, like it sees the body like a machine. So it's like if a part is broken, we fix it. So instead of just nurturing the whole body and all aspects of it, we tend to just fix or try to fix the symptom instead of looking at, okay, so this is happening. Perhaps it's related to, childhood trauma,
Yeah.
ancestral traumas, life circumstances. Like there's so many elements that can create disharmony within us, not just physically in our bodies, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally as well. So I think
Mhm.
it's really important and something that I always share with all my clients because a lot of them, like, they go through different things. Not everyone's gone through the same journey that I have or that you have been on as well. And I tell them that, like, it's normal. Like, these experiences that we've had are normal and okay. Like, they're a normal reaction to the chaotic world that we live in. And a lot of us, like, weren't educated or equipped with the information on, like, how to even understand our own family dynamics and systems, relationships with friends and others, and then just like the greater world as well, right? Like there's so much happening, and it's normal to feel out of sort when we don't have anything to kind of like grasp onto to ground us, or to just, yeah, feel harmonious within ourselves, within all aspects of ourselves.
Hello again. Before you dive into the rest of today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support and for hitting that play button. If you want to expand on that support, here are 3 ways that you can do so. 1. Leave a review. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, or you want to share how the podcast changed your life, you can do so by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. 2. Check out our shop. The Rough Edges shop is a faith-based, women of color owned online shop where you can get a variety of products from tote bags, journals, t-shirts, crew necks, and more. 20% of the proceeds go to a mental health organization. So check it out at roughedgespodcast.com/shop. 3. Connect on social media. Rough Edges is on a variety of social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and more. If you want to connect outside of listening to the podcast episodes, you can do so on those platforms. If you have any more questions or want more information on the ways that I've just discussed, you can check out the episode description or stay to the end for more information. Now, enjoy your episode. Yeah, I agree. And especially when you mention, like, there are so many different aspects and dimensions to like self care and like managing trauma. Cause a lot of the times we get so caught up in like one aspect of it. I mean, I know for me, sometimes I focus on the psychological, like self care, and I just try to take care of my mental health. But then I neglect my physical, and then I would neglect my spiritual, and I would be out of balance, so to speak.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's really important to like really nurture every aspect of self care because you are a three-dimensional person. Like, you're not just solely spirit or solely mind or solely body. Like, all of those things connect to each other so that you could be able to move forward in the healing process. So, yeah, I appreciate.
absolutely. And again, if we look at the garden, if we're just like showering a plant with just sunlight and not watering it, so we can say like
Mm,
sunlight is just the mind part, and we're just focusing on like it's gonna burn up, and like it's like the other parts are so crucial. We still need to water it. We still need to make sure it's
yeah.
like in good soil.
Yep.
So yeah, thinking of it in that way too, of like, okay, like all elements have a huge impact. And yeah, like our like movement is just as important as eating well for our bodies, as
Mhm.
is like, making sure that we're thinking positive thoughts and, reframing negative self-talk and things like that too.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm also curious to know, like, which one of your treatments do you enjoy practicing the most with your clients?
Again, questions. It's like asking like, what's your favorite song? It's like, oh, there's too many.
Or maybe like a couple. You could give a couple of them.
Yeah, because it really depends on what the person is going through, how I decide like which, like I always say it's like a bag of tricks kind of, and I'm like, okay, or like a toolbox. I'm like, I have so many tools, I can just like pull them out and see like which one suits the situation the best. Right
Mhm.
now, somatic breathwork is really what is exciting me. It's an hour long, like deep breathing process, and there's breath hold within it. And it's a really interesting process because people are like, wow, that was just my breath. And I experienced this like whole experience. A lot of people
Wow.
actually have moments. So this type of breath work, sometimes it's referred to as holotropic breath work, was actually designed when in the 70s when LSD was banned. There was a psychologist who was using LSD to help treat his patients who were suffering from PTSD. And they banned LSD. So he was like, okay, I need to get people to have this psychedelic like experience without the drug. So then he went and found, these practices from yogic traditions and shamanism and stuff like that. And then found that, okay, breathing for long periods of time, people tend to have these psychedelic like experiences, and it helped them just connect with that, like their higher selves or God or spirit. And sometimes, like for me, like practicing it myself, I've had experiences where I've connected with loved ones who have passed away, or I get like animals that come through, just different symbols and creative ideas. And it's not always like a big, like emotional release or anything like that. Sometimes it is. It really just kind of depends on the person and what they're going through and what their body needs to. But what it does, it like moves the body through the full loop of the nervous system. So it kind of regulates the nervous system. So kind of getting into that stress response or fight or flight mode. So it does kind of bring you up into this like, oh, okay, this is a bit challenging. But what that does, it allows trauma in the body to kind of bubble up to the surface, old wounds, old stories to come up. And then we just keep breathing, we stick with it. Because often when something traumatic happens to us, like even something like someone yelling at us, and then we're like, oh, we get tense, we get stressed in the body, but then like we kind of walk away from the situation or whatever happens, it kind of comes to an end, but we're still feeling the energy of it. We haven't allowed the body to down regulate. And so with breath work, we stay with the breath. So it moves up into that upregulated state. Everything bubbles up to the surface, and we just keep breathing and we keep breathing and we stay with it. And then it starts to ground back down. So we come back into that down regulated state or the parasympathetic nervous system. And people think stress is bad. Stress isn't a bad thing. We want to be able to move from a stress response into a relaxed response of our nervous system. So moving from sympathetic into the parasympathetic. And we want it to easily pendulate between the two. We want to be able to move into stress in certain situations, like we're driving and someone cuts us off. We want to be able to navigate smoothly. But when we're stuck in stress mode, we can't navigate smoothly because we're actually just like draining our adrenals. We're like exhausting ourselves. That's where burnout happens, right? Because we're just go, 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 and we're not giving ourselves time to just rest and be in that calm state. So it's really fun. A lot of what I do is really like regulating the nervous system. Most of us need it. We're in a world full of like things being thrown at us, like by this, by that, like so many distractions, other voices telling us, or not necessarily voices, but like media, images, songs, it's all there. We witness it all the time, and it can bombard our systems, and taking time to regulate that is really important to come back to that parasympathetic nervous system, the rest, the digest, and the love and connect part of our being.
Wow. That sounds great. I mean, especially like with like the regulating of the nervous system, because it's true, we don't think about how much stimulation we have on a daily basis. Like it could be like the advertisements or social media or listening to music, TV. Like there are just so many things going on constantly. And it's good to know that there are techniques out there that you can use to ground yourself and also regulate your nervous system. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. And that really is what grounding is, right? It's about coming back into ourselves, into that like relaxed state of being.
Yeah, absolutely. And if someone was like interested in practicing the somatic method but was a little hesitant to do so, what would you say to that person?
That's a good question. I would say probably like just try it. Like you can like anything, right? That we're kind of like scared of experimenting with. Like try different people. If like you do it once and you're like, oh, I don't know if that was for me. It could be the instructor or facilitator that you are working with, and try different people. It's a take it or leave it thing. Like not everything's going to resonate with everyone, and that's okay too. Like if you try it out and you're like, I don't know, and like I don't think I want to do this, like that's also fine. Like,
Yeah.
just a reminder with like anything, right? It's like you kind of like scared to try new things, but I think it's good to kind of try and like step into those spaces where there's a little bit of hesitation and just see what comes out of it. Like, I think it's always worth like at least testing out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the reason why that question came up is because I know, at least for like some of my audience, like it's more of like, because I'm a faith and mental health podcast. So I know some of it might be, I don't know about somatic and Qigong and what is this? And so I just want to be able to open up to like mental health practices because mental health is so vast, and
Mhm.
so I want to be able to bring that information, especially from someone who, has professional experience like yourself, to really like educate people on the different ways. And it's not like, it's not witchcraft, it's not demonic. It's just another technique to help you with your physical, like the nervous system and the regulating trauma in that area.
Yeah, yeah, and I get that, like, trepidation with, like, those that might, be Christian and, like yeah, because I guess it's not taught within the faith of, like, how but it's a beautiful way to really connect with God. Like, it's been
Mm.
powerful practice for me to connect with my inner self, my higher self, and that which is greater, like God itself, and it's so beautiful, and you can really, like, make it your own. You can bring, like, your faith to the practice as well. Something I do when I guide my sessions is it's a form of energy healing. It's called Tao healing hand. So Tao is everything. It's God, essentially, just another name. And what we do at the beginning of our sessions is we call in our guides, our angels, like past loved ones. And I tell my clients, like, call in other like saint angels that you work with,
Mhm.
and like visualize this beautiful, like golden circle of protection of all of these beautiful, like angelic beings here with us. And, knowing that like when you start to connect with your body in this way, it really is like a dance with God or with the divine.
Mm.
And that's
Yeah.
how I see it. And it's been the practice that has brought me deeper into my spirituality because I weave it into prayer. Like movement becomes like a meditative movement, dance, prayer, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And there's even like simple movements where I'm just reaching my arms up, bringing palms of hands together, lowering them down to my heart center, and just flowing like that with my breath. So I'm inhaling, exhaling, and it's called prayer flow. And you can connect any prayer that you're doing at the same moment while you're connecting, both sides of your body. When you bring the hands together, we're connecting both brain hemispheres, like the logical, the creative side. So there's that like physical aspect to it. We're opening up through the chest, the heart space, our message center. So it really is, it can be blended if you're open and curious to allowing it to be. But of course, like I said, if you're like, nope, that stuff is just not for me, like that's fine too. Like again, I'm not here to tell people like this is the right way, you must do it. Like I think, trust your gut instinct and just be. Like I always say, like be explorative, try new things. And again, you're allowed to say no and you're allowed to change your mind.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that too, because that's something that I really want to do with the podcast and show that faith and mental health don't have to be mutually exclusive. Like you can
Mhm.
connect them, and you should, because it gives you
Absolutely.
the hope that you need to heal, and also balance and bring that balance into your mind, body, and soul and your spirit. So yeah, I
It's
agree.
so important. It's so important to have that connection to God, to faith, to something beyond ourselves. It can really it's been number 1 for my healing journey. Yeah,
Same here.
after yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on the flip side of that, what would you say to someone who is ready to start but doesn't know how to start? Like what would you say to them as like what's a good starting point to get into this?
I would say start with the breath. The breath is such a great gateway to these things. It's number 1. I mean, we're constantly breathing. It's a beautiful example of giving and receiving because we're always giving a breath and then receiving a breath. So even just coming into focus to the breath, and a really simple practice that I'll just quickly share is called release breath, and it brings us into our center. So all you have to do is take a deep breath in through the nose, just allowing the belly, the ribs, the chest to expand, filling up completely, holding the breath at the top of the inhalation. And as you hold the breath here, to start to feel any scattered energies starting to gather within the body, maybe in towards the heart center. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the mouth and feel those energies grounding down, and just kind of imagining and feeling even your seat, your legs getting heavier. We'll just do that 2 more times together. So deep breath in through the nose, taking as much air as you can, holding the breath at the top, and then exhaling out through the mouth. Just releasing, letting it go, feeling yourself coming into center, into presence, into your body. One more deep breath in, holding the breath. Whenever you're ready, letting it. So that alone brings the body into that calm, connected, relaxed state of being. And it's something really easy that we can weave into our everyday life. Moments when we're feeling a bit scattered, a bit stressed, like at work, again, anytime. You can even do it like while you're driving, just keep your eyes open. I tend to do it with my eyes closed, but if you're driving, keep your eyes open, please. Good rule
Yeah.
with them.
Wow, that was helpful. I did it along with you, and I didn't realize how much tension I had in my shoulders like
Mhm.
earlier on. But yeah, it was helpful. It really was.
Yeah, and that is like a great, like, again, the breath, there's so many little breathing techniques that we can do, but I really like that one. Pretty simple, in through the nose, hold for as long as it feels comfortable for you, and then exhale out through the mouth and just feel the body really sinking down as you're exhaling. It's good to do like before bed too if you have trouble sleeping. Really
Yeah.
relaxes and calms the body.
Okay, I will try
Mhm.
that tonight.
Yeah, let me know how it goes. Keep me posted.
Yes, Susie, I am so glad to have had this conversation. But before we go, I have one last question. What are some words of encouragement or advice that you have for somebody who's struggling to manage their mental health?
Yeah, I'd say that what you're going through is absolutely normal and it's not something to fear or be ashamed of. You're not broken. You might need some support and some in understanding what you're going through. And if that's the case, then reach out for support. And there's so much now, like way more than when I was first hospitalized in 2010. Like there's so many resources, so many amazing like coaches, alternative care, therapy. There's a lot as well, which what I did when I first came out of hospital is I was trying to find like affordable resources too. So I offer some free workshops every now and then, but I just went on the internet and try to find like student therapists and things that were at a lower cost. So reach out to different schools as well, because they often have therapists in training, and that can be a great alternative too. I know it often, usually a lot of younger folks that are starting to experience these things as they kind of transition into adulthood, which again is totally normal because they're just trying to make sense of the world and
Yep.
what it all means. So yeah, definitely like put on your little detective hat, hit Google, search what you feel would support you. And I'm here too. Like I offer programs and stuff as well. So feel free to reach out to me as well.
Yes, and I will be putting all of your information like in the description so people could definitely reach out if they're interested.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much, Susie, for joining me tonight. And everyone, stay tuned for more empowering episodes on Rough Edges. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rough Edges podcast with Sarah I. Fox. If you want more updates on the podcast, you can follow on Instagram at rough.edges.podcast, or you can visit the official podcast website at roughedgespodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.